it is Heather King, and I wanted to give a little reflection today on a big question for some of us at various times. Why does God take so long to answer our prayers? I mean, the short answer is I don't know, of course. But anyway, so I wanted to read this short passage from Surprise, Father Donald Haggerty's book, Conversion, Spiritual Insights into an Essential Encounter with God. And he has this really interesting passage on the raising of Lazarus. And we had, it was a memorial yesterday for Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. I guess it used to be just Martha, but now they have all three. Anyway, you know the story. Martha and Mary. Mary's the one who kind of contemplates at the feet of God. Mary's busy serving. And Lazarus, meanwhile, their brother, or at some point their brother Lazarus dies, and they summon Christ. He's out of town, and he doesn't come back for 3 days. And when he does, he raises Lazarus from the dead. Huge miracle, obviously. But so Father Haggerty says, he asks, why did Jesus shed tears at the tomb of Lazarus? He knew what he was going to do. He knew he was going to raise him. But meanwhile, Mary has kind of reproached him a little bit. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. They had sent Mary and Martha had sent a message to Jesus, Lord, he whom you love is ill. So they were perplexed that it took him what to them seemed so long to arrive, 3 days. Similar to the 3 days of Christ's own, the Triduum. But anyway, so Father Haggerty's take is, anyway, this is what he says. Yet in a shock, a deep confidence and trust ordinarily accompanies the knowledge that we are much loved. So his whole point is Mary and Martha know that Jesus just loves them so much. They trust him completely. Yet in a shock to her, Mary's soul, her later appeal for her brother was apparently ignored, and Lazarus died despite the petition. In composing it, she may have thought that Jesus would understand the words to mean as well that the one he loved, meaning her, was herself ill, in grief at her brother's dire condition. This death of Lazarus must then have devastated the heart of Mary. But then he goes on to say, Jesus himself could possibly have been deeply wounded by Mary's doubting of him, because he does love her so much. He assumes that she trusts him absolutely. If this is true, the encounter by Jesus with the despairing emotion of Mary may in turn have caused a terrible wound to him, drawing from him the weeping recorded in the gospel. Perhaps we do not consider this possibility so readily in our reflection on this passage. In truth, Jesus may have wept from seeing a soul he especially loved now bent down in tears, refusing to look at him, cut off and withdrawn, because her request had not been answered to her expectation, even as he intended to fulfill it. That the wound that could have caused in the heart of Jesus, and of course, if you read that and you're just utterly convicted, and I think of the times that I have, my request has not been answered to my expectation. He goes on to say we easily misperceive his timing. I'm thinking in particular of the stuff that I ask for or actually I'm thinking of this particular instance, which was this hideous, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, because it was a really essential, it's kind of a massive crucifixion and eventual resurrection, but this insane, absurd bewildering romantic obsession I had for what went on. I'm not kidding. It was like probably 15 years. And I was begging. There was nothing ever even went on. I was just utterly, I was obsessed. I could not, it was the first thing I thought about in the morning, the last thing I thought about, just like a scourging. Couldn't stay away, couldn't, it was just this insane, stupid dance that but it was a compulsion, it was an obsession. And I just couldn't, I mean, I was, oh my gosh, confession and 12-step programs and writing and endless inventories and spiritual advisors and on and on and on and on and on. Would not budge the thing. And to me, I just thought, my life is just being squandered on this. So that is the major I don't, other than that, I tend not to ask. I can't think of other instances where big stuff. I mean, other than, please don't make that tire light in my car mean my tire is going to blow on the freeway or something like that. But anyway, yeah, and I just couldn't, I mean, I was just like beside myself. So it's beautiful to read this passage of how much that could have wounded Christ. And in retrospect, I thought, I've heard it said, St. Paul says, 1 Corinthians 9, verse 27, I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. And of course, he talks about, I have finished the course, I have run the race, almost like an athlete. And I've heard it said that Christ, to withstand the crucifixion, the way that he did, without lashing out, without like a lamb to the slaughter, he must have been in incredible mental and emotional and probably physical shape as well, and that he worked up a sweat, in a sense, almost training like an athlete for the crucifixion. And the point is, afterward, I thought, after my own sort of misperceiving, let's say, Jesus's timing, I thought of the incredible suffering it must take for him to undergo in order to relieve any one of us of an obsession. The more deeply rooted the obsession, the more suffering to, I'm sure, relieve it, to reconcile us to God, too. And so maybe, I mean, this is a poetic sort of rendering, but it's one way to think about it. And so maybe he was training all that time to undergo whatever he had to undergo to relieve me, to heal me of my obsession. That passage in the gospel, it's the demoniac, where the disciples say, what, we've tried, we've done everything, we can't really, and Jesus said, oh, this kind only comes out with prayer. And there's another, I think it may be the deaf man, where he groans, he puts I'm probably getting to the blind man and the deaf man mixed up, but he groans as he actually applies his hands, maybe his hands, to the sick person to heal them. Groans, and you wonder, was he groaning in some kind of pain? So anyway, maybe when we think Jesus is not answering our prayers, he's actually working himself up to the limit of his strength to be able to undergo whatever he has to undergo for our healing. Also, of course, let's not forget, God doesn't grant, he won't grant requests that are going to hurt us. And that's another, in retrospect, every day give insane, just thank you, thank you, thank you, because had that thing that I wanted so badly come to pass, I would have probably had to kill myself. I mean, it would have been so hideous and such a hideous compromise of my uh, integrity, really, and a bunch of other stuff. It just would have been so wrong on every level. So sometimes also when our requests are not answered, we see, oh, we were being saved for something a million times greater than what we thought we wanted so badly. Um, I'm thinking as well of Pascal's Christ is in agony until the end of time. So we don't. I think when we ask for our prayers to be answered, and especially for a healing, we don't really know. We can't know what that requires on Christ's part. So anyway, the last thing we would ever want to do is wound our beloved Christ, who's already in agony, and hopefully enjoying a nice meal now and again, and a laugh with his friends, which includes us. So anyway, there's my little take on why does God take so long to answer our prayers, or sometimes never answers them to our satisfaction. Be careful what you ask for, is maybe one takeaway. Anyway, thank you so much. I am back in Tucson. I was gone a month. I was in LA, and then I had a lovely retreat at St. Andrew's Abbey, and man, am I glad to be back home. It's 106 degrees here in Tucson today. Okay, carry on. Hopefully see you next week. Thanks for listening.